Hey, hey, welcome back to Gather, Connect, Create. I'm your host, Megan Schultz, and this is the podcast where I hope to leave you with ideas and ways that you can gather, connect, and create wherever you find yourself with your people. Sometimes that's just ideas of ways that you can gather. Sometimes I share stories that I've heard, and other times I talk with people who've got really fun ideas about how to make these kinds of gatherings more fun for everyone. Today on the podcast, I am excited to introduce listeners to Nydia Maurás-Jones. She is one of the founding partners and director of strategy for Banter Design Co. But we're not really talking about branding per se, except as it relates to our own branding and how we present ourselves. Because today I asked Nydia on the podcast to talk about small talk. Love it or hate it. It usually feels like there's no in between. You either love it or you hate it, right? And I wanted to bring Nydia on because as somebody who specializes in brand strategy and identity messaging and staying aligned with, our purpose professionally, which is what she does during the day, which is what she does professionally, I think she's also got some fabulous insight into how we do that personally. And when I say small talk, when I say I'm devoting an entire episode to small talk, that doesn't mean I think that's where we should stay. That doesn't mean that I love surface conversation or shallow conversation. No. That's not where I'm going with this at all. I wanted to have this conversation because, let's face it, we will all find ourselves in these situations when we're in a huge room. Maybe it's for work. Maybe it's a conference you have to be at. Maybe it's a wedding where you know only the bride and groom and don't really know the people that you're sitting with. Maybe it's a birthday party of somebody where you really don't know the other friends that they've invited. We all have to be in these situations where small talk might be required at first. And I'm just so curious, what do we bring? What do we have in our back pockets to fall back on when things get awkward? When we feel uncomfortable in that space? How can we move with a little more grace, with a little more humility, with a little more curiosity? And you'll hear a little bit more about why I specifically asked Nydia for this conversation when we start talking. So I want to just dive right in. But I will just say, if you are someone who despises small talk, who hates the idea of being in a room full of strangers, who sometimes turns down invitations because of that situation, this might just be the episode for you. Well, Nydia, welcome. Welcome. I mentioned in the introduction that you are the co-founder of Banter Design, which is a strategic branding agency that helps nonprofits and mission-driven businesses create positive change in their communities. And what I loved about your website is your tagline. It said, "Good conversation, bold brands." And
that's right.
Yes. And I have to say, the idea of having you come on this podcast came to me because at the last Creative Mornings event, you're now a sponsor of Creative Mornings, the monthly gathering where really awesome people come together to connect and listen to a speaker on a theme. You have actually been one of those speakers, maybe a year and a half ago, I think it was.
Yep, that's about right. Yep.
But anyway, you are now, Banter Design is now the sponsor of the Community Corner or the Community Conversations, I think we might be calling it. And the way they announced this new sponsorship was by calling you the Queen of Small Talk. And I was like, hey, I got to get this woman on the podcast to talk about what you say too on your website, this good conversation, this small talk, because the pod I rebranded over the fall and now call it Gather, Connect, Create because I was attracted to guests who were just doing that, who were gathering, connecting, and creating, and how to do, people who were doing those things well. And I think that sometimes the idea of gathering and connecting with people turns some people off because of the work required to make the small talk at the gatherings, right? And so I thought, if there is such a thing as a queen of small talk, I need her on this podcast to help listeners talk all about that.
Okay, that's funny because I did not know that that's how they did it. I missed that, and I will happily take the crown, though. I will take the crown for queen of small talk any day.
Yeah. Well, and when I stopped you, I think we saw each other at a gathering and I stopped you and
Mhm.
said, "Hey, well, you want to be on the podcast?" And what you said was, yes, because small talk is truly one of my favorite subjects because I used
Yep.
to hate it and now I love it. And
Yes.
so break this down. Let's break this down. Let's talk small talk. Tell me about this shift for you. You hated it and now you love it.
I did hate it. What most people talk about small talk is one, it's awkward, right? You don't know how to jump into it. You don't know how to get to the rhythm of it, all those things, right? The
Mm,
other thing people don't like is it can feel superficial. Like some people say, I just like to deep dive into things immediately and have deep conversations.
mm,
And I would say another thing people worry about is that they don't come off looking good, right? They walk away going, "Ooh, I shouldn't have said that, and this was dumb, and what did I do?" Right? I
yep.
felt every single one of those things in about until my mid 20s. I didn't know how to start a conversation. I didn't know. I walked away, and every single time I'm like, whatever I said was the stupidest thing ever, and they're never going to want to talk to me again. But then this seems appropriate on St. Patrick's Day. I married into a very large Irish family.
So
And
you
if
have
you
no
want to,
choice.
yeah. So if you want to learn small talk, you just marry into a large Irish family. That is very helpful. Because there was something about the lightness of you go to a family event, they ask you certain like questions, you answer, and then you move on to the next person, and they may ask you the same questions, and you just sort of answer, and you move on to the next person. You're like, okay, this is easy. I can get into this rhythm. No big deal. Um, and then I just started realizing that I was genuinely curious about these conversations, and some of them would last a little bit longer. But it really did help with the giant Irish family is that no matter what you said, it could never be dumb because they
Mm,
didn't care and they loved you anyway. And it didn't really
mm,
matter. So that was one of my biggest things I learned from marrying into them is just like, okay, just say what you're going to say and no one's going to hold it against you. It's not that nobody is thinking about you as much as you are thinking
yes.
about you is like the
Yes.
biggest thing. Nobody is doing that all day long, just thinking about what you said.
Yeah. I mean, and I think about going back to just the idea of creative mornings, right? It's in a room with often over 100 people. And I'm
Hmm.
thinking about the idea of walking into that, maybe when you don't know anyone, or maybe you recognize a few people, and
Hmm.
you can understand, right? You can understand the anxiety of making small talk. And I guess, how do you approach that? When you're walking into a room of people you don't know.
Used to terrify me
Mm,
a little bit. But I also got this little bit like, I don't know how maybe some people feel about a roller coaster. Like, it can be scary, but it could be kind of fun.
mm,
But
mm,
mostly it used to feel scary. I still feel uncomfortable when I walk into a large room and I don't immediately know someone. That discomfort is still there.
mm,
However, what I usually find to be the easiest way to get a conversation going is just to go up to someone, whether they're kind of in a group that you can kind of get a feeling like, oh, can I kind of stand here quietly and jump in? Or maybe just see somebody else sort of feeling awkward in the corner. A compliment. A compliment is like the easiest way to get a conversation started. But it has to be genuine, right? Like you genuinely have to find something to compliment. I'm a big jewelry girl. So I usually find a piece of jewelry and I will be like, ooh, where did you get that? I love it. That's a great color on you. Whatever thing like that usually already starts to warm up a conversation because you're already coming in this really positive thing. And if it's a piece of jewelry or something, you might honestly start a conversation. Oh, I got this in Ireland when we went there for my anniversary or whatever, right? Like you can
mm,
start drumming up a conversation simply from a compliment. So you're starting with something positive. You're starting with a warm connection and then maybe you're going to get them to draw out a story about, oh, this is my favorite color. It's my favorite color since kindergarten, right? Like whatever it is, you can already get started on a positive note.
mm, mm. Have you had can you think of an example, or have you had experiences where those small talk have turned into deeper relationships or business connections or
I can't even think of one because it happens all the time. And
yeah.
I also find what happens because this is another thing about small talk. People say it's so superficial. And it can be for sure. If you can't quite get that connection, sometimes you do the usual. You give the compliment and then it's like, oh, what brought you here today? Right. And then you kind of talk about that. And then maybe you'll say, oh, what do you do? Or where are you from? Those kind of things. If you just can't quite get that connection, that's okay. Like the conversation can kind of dwindle and move on. But if you do start finding connections, oh, I love that because I love to ask questions. So
Mm,
I find everybody interesting, especially people who don't have jobs like I have, like the jobs I've had. I just find them endlessly fascinating or
mm,
just anything about a person. So I get naturally curious, and a lot of those conversations will just keep going.
mm,
And it does end up a lot of connections will stay, like people that I will become friends with. They will come back to my company. I'll just see them a lot at networking events and instantly happy to see them and try to my best to remember everything we talked about. But yeah, it's just like this natural curiosity once you hit on something interesting
mm,
that you could have a connection with or something you don't know anything about. If you could just sort of get into that and ask more questions, curiosity is another really big thing. You have to be curious to make the conversations work. I think I was going back to saying, people feel that small talk is surface level. Again, if you don't find that connection, if you find a connection of some kind, it can get deeper. I can't tell you how many times people will tell me something out of the blue, and then they'll be like, wow, was that too much information? And I was like, never, never
keep
too much information.
more. Yes,
More
yes, yeah.
information. I'm like, this happens to me all the time. Like, I want to go there. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah,
But you
yeah.
also have to be vulnerable yourself and be willing to offer information
Mm.
as well.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about I was listening to a podcast that you were on, maybe it was a couple of years ago now. What is her name? Lacey Robbins?
Yeah, Lacey Coppins Robbins. Hmm.
And you were talking about business, but you were talking about how one of the things that you sometimes encourage clients to do is you have a worksheet and you ask them to
Hmm.
think about their values and who and how they want to present themselves as, and to come up with 3 words, I think you said.
Hmm.
And I was thinking that could actually be an interesting thing to do on a personal level too, like, right,
Yes.
like as before I walk into this creative mornings, or before I walk into this event, or that I don't know anybody at, like how almost like a moment to pause and set an intention for how you want to show up.
I think that's a great way to do it. I probably don't consciously do that, but if I were really to sit down and think about it, yeah, I do. I think I show up with a certain energy. I
Yeah.
would say if I were to describe it, what you described was our brand personality sheet. If you go on
Okay.
our website, you can download it for free
Oh, cool.
with our nonprofit freebies. But yes, it's our brand personality sheet, and just to help, yeah, get the sense of the vibe and the personality of a brand. But you're right. If I were to describe myself, I would hope it would come across as warm, bold, and funny. I think would be a way I enter a room. So even if I'm going somewhere and it's like on the way, I'm like, I don't feel like it. I'm tired. It's like I'm not in the mood to talk to people. I'll get there and I'll get something happens, and maybe it is sort of that mantra or whatever it is, intention saying like I'm gonna be warm and bold and funny. Like it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And I want to enjoy myself and I want people to enjoy talking to me.
Yeah. I thought that was such an interesting, what did you call it? Your personality?
It's our brand personality sheet. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So it's almost like when we show up places, we have our own personal brand, right? That's sort of
Yeah, absolutely.
how we come across. Um,
Absolutely.
is there one small talk skill that people could practice and get better at, even if it feels uncomfortable at first, or that you've done something similar, growing through something?
Ooh, that's a good one. I do think practicing your introductory line or question almost sounds like you're hitting on somebody. That's not what I mean. Like I said, for me, it was compliments
Yeah.
because I'm a visual person. So and again, I like jewelry, I like fashion, I like things like that. So for me, my intro was very easy to start with a compliment. Um, that is just sort of, again, my brand. I want to be warm, I want to be engaging. So that makes sense for me. So I would say practice what you feel comfortable to be your kind of opening line of conversation, and maybe getting your two, like I mentioned before, 2 or 3 questions down the line, practice those a little bit. I'd say
Mm,
another thing to really practice is listening. Like
mm,
that, people so worry about the talking part and what they're going to say is dumb, but it's really about the listening because the whole point is being curious
yeah.
about this other person. I think if you really think about it in terms of curiosity instead of a thing you have to do, it can help reshape how you think about it. And maybe learn more about them and their brand.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I so appreciate talking about this really makes me think about how important it is to be a good host and to
Mm-hmm.
offer the way into these gatherings that makes it accessible and makes it
Yes.
feel welcoming and warm. And I had a whole episode back in November on just name tags because I love name tags
Oh,
and I
I
need
love
them.
name tags.
Yes.
That's actually why I initially offered to sponsor Creative Mornings. I was like, just give us name tags.
How
Because I will small talk all day, but I will not remember a name. And I feel
yes.
terrible about that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
It's really one of my things. But yeah, I agree. The way an event is set up, if you know it's intentionally meant for gathering and meeting people, that's helpful, right? If you know it's meant for everyone's here for business connections and that's what we're here for, that's also helpful to kind of know the mindset that the guests should have before they get there. I think is very helpful because then feelings don't get as hurt if people just want to talk about business and you're maybe being a little more personal. Well, that was the intention, right? It's supposed to be more business, right?
Yeah.
So I do find it very helpful when I go in knowing a little bit, okay, what's the goal? What's the vibe here?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. I have a list of what would you do or rapid fire ish questions about
Ooh.
when you walk into a space. So if you're up for that.
Yes, yeah, let's do it. Let's try it.
Okay, first off, and this maybe you can be the expert on this because this is what you do, but business cards, are they still a thing? Do we do them? Do we put QR codes on them?
This is the never ending question. I do think business cards are still a thing. Do I always have them on me? Absolutely not. But I'm still asked for them. It gives that feeling of like I have talked to someone and I have won the award. Not really, but I do think it's helpful still. People still take notes on them to make little notifications. It's a good way to have that reminder later of like, oh right, because once
Yeah.
you put it on your phone, unless you do it in a certain way, kind of just gets lost in the LinkedIn and the ether of it all. So I
Yeah.
do think business cards are still a helpful reminder, physical reminder. And I do like when there's a QR code, whether it's to your contact form or to LinkedIn, something where they can easily scan it. If they don't want to take your card and they just do want to scan it the old fashioned way, the new fashioned way.
I feel like there was some app that a woman did where she just wanted me to touch her phone or something. And I was
Yeah.
like, whoa,
Yeah.
what's happening here? What is
Yeah.
that? What was that? Do you know?
I like those, but then I never looked at them again. Whereas like the business cards, I will at least look at them again. Like I have a
Yes.
whole stack right here. So I'm like, oh, I
Yes.
need to call these people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas once it's on my phone, it's gone.
Yeah. Okay.
No, never looking at it again.
Okay. So business cards. And this is something that you guys do, right? Banter.
We
You
do.
are, this is how,
Yep.
do you want to do just a small plug for what you do?
Well, we do branding, marketing, graphic design for nonprofits and small businesses, as you said. We're really a strategic partner. We really become almost like your internal team. We get to know you as much as we can, whether that's through a shorter project for branding or a larger project if we're there for your kind of retainer work and there with you every month. We really get to know who you are, who your audiences are. And then we're always kind of thinking like, ooh, how can we make this better? How can we get their name out there even more because we want everyone to banter about you as well, right? So
Mm,
we really become your strategic partner in marketing
nice.
and design,
Nice. Okay. Including business cards.
including business cards.
Okay. Next question. I feel like people don't like small talk also because the first thing they think to ask is, so what do you do? And I'm
Yeah,
wondering if you have a different, we talked about compliments, but is there a
yeah.
different question, either A, to learn about what somebody does without asking them what they do, or to just
Hmm.
bypass that question altogether and find out more about them as a human? And if that part comes up, great, but otherwise.
I like, how do you spend your time?
Mm,
I don't say free time. I don't say work time. I just say, how do you spend your time? And if they want to share that they work, like what their job is, great. If they want to share that they are spinning plates as a hobby, fantastic. They want to share about their kids, whatever it is. So it's how do you spend your time or how do you like to spend your time? Either one.
mm,
I think is a nice neutral way to let somebody talk about that. Again, if you're in a business thing, it's okay. I think a little bit more to say, what do you do? But I get that hesitation of we're not just our job,
mm-hmm,
we're a
mm-hmm.
whole human. So
Yes.
I like that. How do you like to spend your time?
Yes, I like that one because especially for me who I need to work on my elevator pitch because this podcast is how I spend my time. It's a passion project, so it's not like I'm bringing home the bacon for the family with this podcast, but I love it.
Yeah.
And I also am home with my kids and there's that
Yeah.
weird, how do I describe what I do? And I like that. How do you spend your time?
Yeah. Because we don't all do one thing, right? What do you do? Well, I make dinner.
Yeah.
I hang out with
Right.
my kids.
Lots of laundry. Yeah. Yeah.
Lots of laundry.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, my husband does most of that.
Wow.
Lots of things we
Oh,
do.
lucky you.
Yeah. Otherwise, laundry would not get done. It would not happen.
All right. Next question. Oh, somebody that you meet at an event has broccoli in their teeth. Do you tell them about it?
I always tell them.
Hmm.
I do. I think it's the polite, right thing to do.
Okay.
I'm a big. I'm very East Coast, so I'm very sort of blunt sometimes. So I usually err on the side of just be honest, because then I'll feel bad later if they go to the mirror and they see and they're like, "Why didn't anybody tell me?" I'm like, "Well, I'll tell you." No one's ever gotten mad about me telling them they have broccoli in their teeth.
Yes.
Not one time.
Yeah.
They're
No.
usually grateful.
Yes. Right. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Same. All right. Well, maybe similarly, you would do the same here, but how to handle a mispronunciation, say. Like, my name is
Well, my name.
Megan. I bet
Yeah.
you get Nydia.
I get Nadia as what I get all the time, and it's Nydia, or in Spanish, Nydia. I do code switch a little. But I just politely just say, because it's definitely happened where I'll say my name. I try to say it as loudly, as clearly as possible. The person will come back with Nadia, and I'll just politely repeat back, no, it's Nydia, like Lydia. And they're usually very nice about it. Sometimes I think people get a little embarrassed, and I just sort of oh, no big deal. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
And just sort of move it along. Just try to, but I will stand firm in that is how to say my name.
Yeah.
And politely, kindly, firmly just reiterate it when I can.
Yeah. Yeah. Same with
And I will also say, if you're the other person in the group and you've heard that someone's mispronounced your friend's name, you can also stand in and say, "Oh, it actually is pronounced this." if your friend doesn't say
yes.
it, you can be
Yes.
that person in the group that's like, "Oh, actually, it's pronounced this way."
Yes. And that is so helpful and so appreciated by those of us who are constantly mispronounced.
I know, you're like, "Oh, I have to say it again," and you're like, "Oh, good, my girl's got it this time." Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes. Yeah. I've come up with what I now usually just say is Megan. It rhymes with vegan, but I like bacon.
There you go. Yeah, I think you said that to me. I'm like, Nydia rhymes with, sounds like Lydia.
Yeah.
I have gotten Nydian a few times, or Lydian, when I've said that. And I was like,
oh, no.
No, that's not what I was going for. But that's only happened like 2 or 3 times.
Okay. Here's a question that I think also maybe stops people from enjoying being in these gatherings. What do you do if you are at a gathering and you are stuck in a corner with somebody who maybe isn't particularly interesting, or you'd like to get out of this conversation so that you can get to meet other people, but they're just talking and talking and talking? And how do you get yourself out? How do you extricate yourself from that?
Oof, that is a toughie, I will say. So there's a couple things. If you can, the luckiest, easiest, well, maybe the easiest way to do is if more people come up or around and you bring them into the conversation and introduce people and slowly back away. That's one, right? I have felt bad that I have done that to friends, and I'm like, "Goodbye, good luck, your turn now." That's not very nice of me. Or if it's a event where there's a bar or something, I'll be like, "Oh, I'm thirsty. I'm getting a coffee, whatever. I'm gonna go get a drink. It was nice to meet you." I won't offer to get them out. It was very nice to meet you. Sometimes that backfires because they'll go with you, and you're like, "Oh God." But at least then you're in line, and maybe you can start talking to other people, and that at least gets you into a more public space. There's always the classic, "Oh, I need to run to the bathroom."
Yep.
Need to run to the bathroom line. And sometimes I just, again, sort of gently and firmly try to find a part of the conversation where I'm like, "Well, it was really nice to meet you. This is such a great event, and there's some more people that I would love to sit and chat with, and maybe we'll connect later tonight."
Yeah.
I will do just a very try to, again, kindly and honestly be like, "Your time is up."
Yes.
And let's all both go meet new people. This was so fun. But again, leave it on a positive note.
Yeah. I've had that. I've been on the receiving end of one of that. And I have to say, I actually really appreciated the honesty again. Oh, yeah, you're right. I could stand to mingle with somebody else right now as well.
Yeah.
Like look at the
I've been
bravery.
on the receiving end of it too. And I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Again, it comes back to what you were saying at the beginning. Like people aren't thinking about us as much as we think they're thinking about us, right? Like
correct. Yeah.
almost get over yourself.
Yeah. Almost. Almost. But it took me like 30 years to learn that
Yeah.
almost.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yeah. I
it's a
also
long
think
time.
I keep wanting to try this at one of the gatherings that I host where I used to do this for my kids' classes when they were little, and I'd invite all the parents over, like a no kid party, but let's get to know each other, all the parents. And I could see it sort of happening where the people who knew each other would be talking and they
Yeah.
wouldn't really rotate. And the whole point was to meet everybody. So I thought, you know what, next time I'm going to have a little bell. It's going to be like, when I dingle this, then you have to rotate and find a new talking partner. And I never
Oh,
did
that's kind
try
of
that. But
fun.
I feel like, even though some people might be like, oh my God, lady, I'm never coming to one of
I
your
know.
parties again. But, other people might be like, oh,
Yeah.
thank God I get to move.
Yeah. I so appreciate it if a host is intentionally trying to introduce cross pollinate groups. If they're
Yeah.
like, oh, have you met so and so? They're interested in this thing that's the same as you, right? Like I do so appreciate that when someone, whether they're a host of a party or they're also at a networking event and they just happen to see two people that they know should meet each other. I think
Yes.
that's so helpful to have that outside person to just say, oh, you two should meet. I think it's such a nice, easy, natural way. And again, it starts the conversation on a positive note because
Yeah.
they already have a some kind of connection somehow. Whether they talk about you and, oh, how do you know her, or whether they talk about the thing they have in common.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do love that a lot. So hosts out there or people at events, if you know people,
Yes.
be the connector, be the connector.
Yes, I always think about that scene in Bridget Jones where she's like, "Mr. Darcy, meet." Da, 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 da. And
Yeah,
she
yeah, exactly.
exactly does that. Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, is there any last nuggets of wisdom that you want to drop around small talk about gatherings, about how to put yourself out there and be uncomfortable sometimes?
I think I like how you just said that, be uncomfortable. Sometimes you just have to sit in the discomfort
Mm-hmm.
and know you're not going to die and know that no one's going to talk about it the next day.
Yeah.
It's going to be fine. Unless, bring it back to Bridget Jones and you're going down a fire pole with your skirt over your head. Yes, people may talk about that, but it can't be worse than that. Go in a little delusional. Go in thinking that you're going to be the life of the party. And if you're not the life of the party or just a good time, hey, you still killed it, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
just go in ready to be curious, ready to have a little bit of fun. And if you only got talked to 2 to 3 people, like give yourself a little goal. Hey, I'm going to talk to 2 new people they've never talked to today before, and just keep it realistic and low expectations. And then if you talk to 5 people, that's amazing.
Boom. Yes, yes. Well, hopefully people can come out to some of these creative mornings that are happening throughout the year. Always on the third Friday, they can talk to at least the two
Yes.
of us. So there's your 2 people, 1, 2.
We're here. We're here. We're ready to talk at any time.
Yes, yes. Oh, Nydia, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I love talking about small talk. I love small talk.
Yeah,
This
me
is
too.
not something that I generally have a problem with, but I've really enjoyed breaking it down and getting
Yeah.
into the minutia of it, because I hope that listeners walk away with a little bit of inspiration, maybe not wanting to avoid gatherings because now they have some ideas in their pockets or some ways to approach strangers or new people when small talk is
Yeah.
required. So,
Yeah. And tell us about it at Creative Mornings, y'all. If you're there, tell us about your small talk adventures.
yes, yes. And I will put ways that listeners can get in touch with you, particularly if maybe they want to work with you and your team on some branding work or even maybe some personal branding work. Who knows?
That could be fun. That could be very fun. Well, this was a lot. This was great. This was definitely, I felt gathered, connected. We were creating something here. I loved it.
Boom. All right. Thanks, Nydia. What a fun conversation. If you are someone for whom small talk is the bane of your existence, if you decline offerings to go out, to gather, to network because the idea of small talk scares you or makes you uncomfortable, I hope that this conversation has given you a little bit of fodder, or at least a couple ideas of questions, compliments, or otherwise just curiosity that you can carry with you into a gathering to make it easier for you to meet new friends, maybe new professional connections. I think before we started this conversation, I was thinking it would be most helpful for people who are entering these kinds of situations who aren't that keen on small talk. But what I found interesting during this conversation is how many times we returned to the role of the host. So if you find yourself hosting gatherings and bringing people together, whether it's a big gathering of hundreds or a small gathering where people don't really know each other that well, what are the ways that you as the host can be thinking about, be mindful of what your guests need as they look to meet each other and to network and to build community? Because the role of the host is just as important in how we help our guests navigate through small talk. So whether that's creating intention right when people step into the room with a name tag. And if you haven't listened to my episode on name tags, I highly recommend you go back and listen to that. Or whether it's a way we encourage rotating and moving and cycling through and giving people permission to switch up their talking partners. I can't tell you the number of gatherings I've been to where I wish somebody would have said, okay, time to move on, rotate. But there are so many ways that as hosts, we can also be considerate and thoughtful in ways that help our guests. All right, these are the kinds of episodes I love so much because they just take one seemingly tiny topic and really get into it, get into the nitty-gritty so that it's easier for all of us to be both guests and hosts of these kinds of opportunities to gather, connect, and create. I will put links to all of the ways that you can get a hold of Nydia and her team if our conversation sparked something in you and you might want to talk a little more about branding, brand strategy, messaging, brand identity, all of those good things. I will put the website to her company in the show notes, as well as links to Creative Mornings where you can come and practice your own small talk skills. And if you've got something that you keep in your pocket when you go to events like this, something that you whip out, and whether it's a question or another creative way that you get to know people, I would love to hear about it so that I can share with our listeners. The point of this podcast is to encourage us all to get better at gathering, connecting, and creating. So I'd love to hear what you have and how you do this. There are links in the show notes of also how you can get a hold of me. Or leave me a voice memo, and maybe I can include that in the next podcast for listeners to hear directly from you. All right, I'll be back next week. Until then, good luck with the small talk.